Welcome to Modicart channel. Today, we're launching into a compact deep dive, but a really powerful one. It's tailored, actually, specifically for you learners navigating the tricky bits between English and Indonesian communication. We're tackling one specific English idiom, if any.
Exactly. And our mission today, well, it's to get past just the dictionary definition, right? We want to unlock how you actually use if any in real situations. It's a phrase that's great for subtle communication, especially when you need to express a bit of caution or doubt.
Okay, right. Subtle communication. I like that. So let's unpack this linguistic safety net, maybe. Our source material gives us the core translation pretty quickly. In Indonesian, if any is roughly jika ada or kalau memang ada. So that seemed to capture the possibility part, yeah.
It does, but there's more to it, you know? The fascinating part is why people choose this phrase. I mean, why not just say none or very few? Using if any, well, it functions to express this really strong doubt about whether something exists or how much of it exists. It suggests the amount is super small, maybe even zero. But crucially, it does it without being totally definitive. It acknowledges a tiny possibility.
Okay. So it's like hedging your bets linguistically. That distinction, doubting without flat out denying that, seems key. It sounds more, I don't know, considered, like you've looked into it.
Yeah.
So structurally then, where does it usually sit in a sentence? It comes after the noun, right? Like a post modifier.
Exactly right. For you learners, that's a good rule to remember. If any typically pops up right after the noun, or maybe a quantifier like few or little, that describes what you're questioning. And using it correctly forces you to be precise about whether you're talking countable or uncountable things. That's definitely a sign of more sophisticated English. You have to pair it right. You know, few for countable, little for uncountable.
Okay, that's a critical point you just raised there, the few versus little. But it also makes me wonder, if the goal is to say something is minimal, almost non-existent, why not just say, there were 0 questions? Why bother with if any? Seems more complicated.
Well, it often comes down to politeness, or maybe sounding more objective and less harsh. A flat 0 can sound really absolute, sometimes even a bit dismissive, depending on the context. If any sort of signals, look, I've considered the possibility, I've looked, and the result is negligible, almost certainly none. You're kind of saying, I couldn't find any, but hey, if there's one tiny exception I missed, I acknowledge that slim chance. It shows thoroughness.
Interesting. Okay, let's make this concrete. Let's see it in action. How about we start with a common scenario, maybe focusing on our Indonesian context. We can look at it with a countable noun, like employees in a meeting. So the Indonesian example would be, dalam rapat itu hanya sedikit karyawan yang mengajukan pertanyaan jika ada.
Right, and the direct English counterpart would be, in that meeting, few employees asked questions, if any. See, we use few because employees are countable things, people you can count, and the meaning is clear. Maybe one person piped up, but honestly, it was probably 0. That's the feeling it gives.
Okay, got it. The few for countable. Now, let's shift gears slightly. Where precision really matters is maybe in more formal situations, like talking about evidence. The Indonesian example here is, ada sedikit bukti jika ada yang mendukung tuduhan tersebut.
And that translates very cleanly to, there is little evidence, if any, to support the accusation. And this is where that technical bit really lands. We use little here, right?
Yeah.
Because evidence is generally treated as an uncountable mass noun in English. The function minimizing the amount is identical, but the word choice, little versus few, depends entirely on that noun type.
That makes perfect sense. So pulling this all together, what's the big takeaway for you listening, for the learner? It seems like using if any is sort of a shortcut, a way to add this subtle layer of critical sophistication pretty easily. It bridges that gap between a hard no and a vague maybe 1 or 2 showing you're thinking about those edge cases, those very low numbers. It just makes your statement sound less absolute, more thoughtful.
Absolutely. And that leads to a good final thought, maybe a challenge for you, the listener. Think about your own work or studies right now. Maybe you're summarizing data, maybe drafting an update or a report. Where could you potentially use, if any? Where could it help you soften a statement about, say, a lack of resources or maybe minimal findings or not much information available? How could it make your communication both really precise and maybe a bit more diplomatically cautious?
That's a great question to reflect on as you practice. A perfect challenge. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into this small but mighty phrase, if any. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe.